Hey, everybody, it's time for another daily drop here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones joining you, going solo, as I often do in the middle of the week on our daily drops. Quick reminder, this show is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. We'll have a note from them here in a few minutes in the show. So the question is this Mack Brown's best team in his second stint at North Carolina? Now, I know it might be a little premature. Tar Heels are just 4 games into the season. They're 4-0 for the first time since Mack Brown's best team ever at North Carolina, which was 1997, although I think the 96 team would like to play the 97 team, even though a lot of the guys are the same guys. I think the 96 team may have been a little bit more physical in some respects. The 97 team had a better record, and they went into the season with a little more pressure to be a great team. But that's a different topic for a different time. So we have 5 teams to look at. To answer the question, is the 2023 version of Mack Brown Carolina football the best version since he returned 5 years ago? Now, let's go over these teams very quickly. The first club, 2019, great story, really good turnaround. They go 7-6, rout Temple in the bowl game, had some thrilling wins that year. The opener against South Carolina. The next week, the Daz Newsome catch from Sam Howell to beat Miami, or to almost beat Miami. They still had to deal with a couple of things defensively. The Duke game that year, the Chaz Surratt, brilliant interception. And then, of course, the way that they routed Temple was a clear indication that things were ascending like this. Not like that, but like this. 2020, a continuation. They had a couple of hiccups, but as a program, they weren't ready to be number 5 in the country. So they got blown up out of the gate by FSU, but made a push. They had just a bad loss at Virginia. And I say bad loss because the defense was just not good that night. And then they had that blown 4th and 1 on defense situation against the Wahoos. That was critical. But a lot was learned. They ended up closing out the season, annihilating Miami in historic fashion on the road, a top 10 road win. And then they were very competitive with Texas A&M. They were ahead in early in the fourth quarter, I believe, if I recall. And they were without some of their key players, but it was the Orange Bowl, the program's first major bowl game in 71 years. The next year was a debacle. The club, Mack has said, they were believing the hype. They just weren't ready. He never had a good vibe about that team, and they got obliterated right out of the gate against Virginia Tech. It was a close loss, but it was a clear indication that was not the team people thought they were, and they put about 19 exclamation marks on it a few weeks later when they went down to Atlanta and got killed by a bad Georgia Tech team. And we also learned that night from Jeremiah Gemmel that they hadn't prepared for Jeff Sims to play that night. He hadn't played the previous 2 games. He was injured, but he was their starting quarterback. He was one of their representatives at the ACC kickoff in Charlotte, but they didn't prepare for him and paid the price. Last year's team, really good season, 9-1 start. Drake May talk with the Heisman, CFP talk. They clinched the Coastal. Then they lose their last 4 for a variety of reasons. Just didn't close teams out. So that's a snapshot about bringing us up to the 2023 season. Before I go into the rest of this and tell you whether or not I think this is the best Mack Brown team of part 2, let's go ahead and hear a quick word from our wonderful sponsor, Underdog Fantasy.
Yes, guys, we are so excited to be partnered with Underdog Fantasy. And we decided to partner with Underdog because it's the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and it's also the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry right now as well. And Underdog Fantasy has so much to offer, including their Pick'em game. And in Pick'em, you pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total in this week's game for a chance to win big. It's so easy to play. Just pick 2 to 5 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. And you can 20x your money by going just 5 for 5. They also have a Best Ball Mania. If you think you know football, you need to check this one out. This year's Best Ball Mania has $15 million in total prizes up for grabs, with the winner taking home $3 million. So sign up today with the promo code HEAL, HEEL, and get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store. And don't forget to register with that promo code HEAL to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Must be 18 plus and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms do apply. And if you're concerned with your play, call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ncpgambling.org. Back to the show.
Now, last year's club did start out 3-1, or 3-0 rather, but those were wins over Florida A&M, at App State, and at Georgia State. Not quite the same trio now, but or even the foursome. We don't want to do foursome because I guess last year they had Notre Dame in the fourth game. They had Pitt in this one. Clearly, Notre Dame was a better team than what Pitt is right now. What I think is interesting is that the first four games of this season, the opponents aren't as good collectively as we thought they were going to be. South Carolina's 2-2. App State lost at Wyoming this past weekend, which is not a bad loss, especially they were competitive, but they're still 2-2. Minnesota's 2-2. Had a terrible loss at Northwestern this past weekend. Terrible loss. And then Pitt's 1-3. And the biggest question mark Pitt has is that the most important position in football, and it has no answers. It has no quarterback. It's not going to have a quarterback. It's not like the Panthers can go out and hire some free agent or make a trade. Can't do it. They're stuck with what they are. Minnesota is offensively challenged. South Carolina did beat Mississippi State, so maybe the Gamecocks are going to put together a solid season. Point is that we thought coming in, this four-game stretch was really tough. And I thought, hey, maybe they go 3-1. But now it doesn't look so tough. The next six do. You got Miami in there. You got Duke in there. You have three teams that are currently undefeated, two that are highly ranked in the stretch of the next six games. Plus, you have a road game at Georgia Tech, which played Ole Miss tough for about 3.5 quarters on the road, and then won at Wake this past weekend. So I think we'll continue learning a lot about this team well before they get into the last two games at Clemson and at State. So is this the best team of part two? I think it is. And I think it is because this team, and I like to use this term, some people say I overdo it, it crosses its T's and dots its I's more often than previous MAC teams in part two have. They're better defensively. They're better in pre-snap. They look so much more organized. They're more physical, and they're deeper. They're definitely a deeper team. They played 11 guys on the line of scrimmage defensively against Pittsburgh. They have two jacks that they trust. Rucker plays a ton. They've got a lot of corners. They got a lot of safeties. They're just better defensively. People are still complaining that they allowed the two scoring drives to Pitt to start the game, but Pitt's last 10 possessions, 150 yards, one field goal. Minnesota the week before, last four possessions, 46 yards, no points. Think about this. In 3 games against Power 5 teams, this defense has allowed 2 field goals in the second half. That's it. The one touchdown Pitt had was special teams. Now, the special teams is a concern. I asked Mack after the game Saturday, are you concerned about the special teams? And yes. That was the answer, yes. And he said they were going to address it this week. And there is reason to be concerned. They screwed up a lot of stuff the other night. They already lost an onside kick against South Carolina, all right? They had a punt block Saturday. They allowed a kickoff return for a touchdown. They had a sky kick. Some people call it a pooch kick. They had a sky kick that was supposed to go to the 25. It went to the 35. The Pitt player muffed it. And when a guy muffs a kick, the kick team should pounce on it. They fall on the ball. Carolina didn't fall on the ball. They had a big penalty on a kickoff return. And they had a missed field goal at the end of regulation against South Carolina. So special teams has not been good. I do think special teams will get better, especially the fact that it will be a point of emphasis this week in practice. You got to be now. They did have a punt return for a touchdown. They did have another long punt return by Huzzy. So generally the coverage on kickoffs have been pretty solid. They're not having the same percentage of touchbacks with Liam Boyd than they have with Ryan Coe. So they need to get Coe back. He's a touchback guy. So you get teams to start at 25. They can't return it for a touchdown if they're not returning it. So they need to get Ryan Coe back. He can be a real weapon for this team in that respect. That is an area of concern, but they do have what it takes to address that and fix it. So we'll see if there may be some personnel changes in kick coverage this week at practice. Offensively, it kind of appears that this team hasn't come close to just sort of hitting full stride. And I say that knowing that they scored on, 5 of their first 6 possessions against South Carolina. They scored on 4 of their first 5 against Pittsburgh, a really good defense. They played really good defenses so far. They had 4 straight possessions scoring against a good defense at Minnesota. And I think they're averaging almost 36 points a game with a clock change, rule change this year. So that's pretty good. They're 23rd, I think it is, in total offense. I do think they could be better. But one area I think this club could be much better is utilizing Drake more. Those 15 to 20-yard bullets over the middle, they got a lot of guys that can catch that pass and turn their nose upfield and run and get more. J.J. Jones in the post, running those post patterns, he's gotten a lot better at that. And I think that needs to be utilized. His size, he gets inside the DB. That's a weapon right there. And he's such a smart guy. He makes the right decisions all the time. I think this offense has a chance to be an offense that has a lot of success in big games and big situations, especially when you got an absolute stud at quarterback. So you put all this together, I think this is a good team with the potential of being really good. Are they really good yet? They have been really good in stretches. I think right now, if this team were to play the 2020 team, who would win that game? Now, the 2020 team that went to Miami would beat this team. But the 2020 team that went to Charlottesville and that went to Tallahassee would get manhandled by this team. I think this club is better, much better defensively. I think they're more physical. I think they're smarter. They're older. They got 6 graduates in the rotation on defense. They've got absolute NFL guys. They have 3 surefire NFL guys in Gray, Rucker, and Huzzy. I think Desmond Evans, the way he's playing, the way he got after the quarterback, the way he makes offenses pick him up with an extra blocker and pass rush, it's huge. They've got a lot of players on that side of the ball, man, and they are collectively playing well as a team. We'd seen individual talent on defense before in North Carolina, but this club's playing more gelled. That's why I think this team is better. That's why I think this team would beat 2020. I think they do well enough against the run, and they'd be able to get to Sam, because remember, 2021 gave up a ton of sacks. The offensive line in 2020 still wasn't great, especially in pass pro. So I think this is the best team that Mack has had. But of course, it's only 4 games in, and we have 8 more games to watch from this club to get more intel, because who knows how they're going to handle things. They got opportunities to put flags in the soil as being the best of Mack's 5 teams in stint number 2. I want to know what you guys think. Is this the best team in Mack Part 2, or is it just too early to tell? It's a conversation worth having now, because this is the open date, so I'm not jumping the gun. I'm just trying to have discourse. I want to see what you guys think, and decided I would lay out my thoughts and ask for yours. And if you want to go the extra mile, why don't you rank the 5 teams of Mack Part 2? I'll do it right now real fast. 2023, 2020, 2022, 2019, 2021. That's my 1 through 5 of Mack Part 2. I want to know yours, and I want to know it through the many different mediums that we have: Twitter, DM, Facebook, and also our website, TarHeelIllustrated.com, which you can be a member of for just $8.33 a month. Go ahead and like this video if you think this is the best team in Mack Part 2, or could become the best team in Mack part 2. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you get updates every time we upload, which is often. Thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this show, as they have done often lately and will continue to do throughout the rest of the college football season. I'm AJ, and I will see you tomorrow